Welcome to Moore Up North. I'm so glad you're joining us. This next week is election day, and I'm hoping that you will take the time to vote and to be informed on issues such as Ballot Prop 1, Ballot Prop 2. By the way, no on both. Tonight we're going to be talking to Ethan Berkowitz and Hollis French, who are both running in the gubernatorial primary, and enjoy. God, I live for that all week long until people clap for me again in a room. You can, you're always welcome to come down here and join us. Welcome back to Moore Up North. Today we're going to have both candidates on the Democratic ticket just be able to put their voices out there, not in a debate situation, and we'll be asking them some questions as well. And Ethan Berkowitz is here. He's a 2010 Democratic gubernatorial candidate. He served in the State House of Representatives for 10 years, from 96 to 2006. He was the minority leader for 8 of those years. And by minority, I mean endangered species, really. He ran for lieutenant governor with Tony Knowles in 2006 and then for U.S. Congress in 2008. Ethan and his wife, Mara, are partners in several local businesses, including Snow City Cafe, Spinard Roadhouse, Nunatak LLC, which is a venture that will install a submarine fiber optic cable that will run from Kodiak to Unalaska to Prudhoe Bay, bringing high-speed broadband to more than 140 rural communities. Do you think they really want that?
They do. We hear on dial-up that they want it.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. So, well, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
So, you've run a couple of statewide races. And you've run, of course, your local ones when you were going back to June every time. Why did you want to do that again?
Because I wasn't done with the public service that I have, because I've got a vision of where the state needs to go, and because I'm incredibly concerned that if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're going to get what we got, and that's just not what the state needs. I mean, we've got a governor right now whose approach to the world is to do nothing, and the more he does nothing, the farther behind Alaska falls, and that's just not a satisfactory future for us.
So when did you decide you wanted to do this? Was it induced in part by the lack of leadership we have now?
No, I decided before Sean Parnell became governor, well, that woman from Wasilla was still here.
That woman. Okay, so you decided then that you wanted...
I think the trajectory that the state was on is just not a good trajectory for us to be on. And you see in Sean Parnell a lot of the continuation of policies that Sarah Palin started, and I think that's the wrong place for Alaska to be. Where
do you think he's fallen?
I think he's fallen in terms of setting the right tone for us. He's been divisive. As I put it, every time he does something, he messes it up, and which is why he does nothing. We don't have a gas line right now. We don't have energy solutions for the state. He's attacked Denali Kid Care. He's hired his own favorite legislators to plum positions. He's just not set a good tone of leadership. And we've got to have an active, visionary, strong, tough governor. Sean Parnell's just not the guy.
Well, I agree.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're starting off in that place.
I do. I think it's been really sad to see what he's done when it comes to situations like the gas line between Anchor Point and Homer, or the wind farms, or the renewable energy projects. Things that aren't hot button necessarily. They're not, abortion issues or gay issues that the family council seems so obsessed with. They're not social issues. They're these no-brainers, really honest no-brainer things. I want to talk to you, and I'll talk to Hollis later. What were the biggest accomplishments that you had when you were minority leader, which I know is a difficult place to be in, but when you were in Juneau, what were the projects when you went down there that you took from your community, from your district, and said, I'm going to make this happen? What were some of those things?
You know, what I was proudest of doing was with the Fiscal Policy Caucus. It was a bipartisan caucus. We tackled the very difficult issue of budget shortfalls at a time of $9 oil. I was proud of the fact we were able to weld the House together at that time and at least begin a conversation with the state about how we create a stable long-term fiscal future for Alaska. I was proud of the fact that I launched the first statewide comprehensive energy plan that I think has evolved over time. It is a piece of legislation that I introduced. Being the minority leader, Republicans were quick to take it from me. John Harris stole it or borrowed it in a subsequent year. That passed. I think that was foundational for some of the plans that have passed this year. I was proud of the work that I did in terms of making sure that victims of sexual assault would have the ability to sue their offenders even after a period of time had passed. There's a lot of things I did in that time that don't actually have my name. I learned as minority leader that if you put my name on it, they'd hold me hostage for it. It was a far preferable thing for me to do, to give credit away and get things done.
Yeah, there was a time in Alaska when if you raped a woman, you got less penalty than if you poached a moose. And I don't know what it would have been if someone had actually raped a moose. I'm guessing we would have brought back the death penalty, looking at how sacred that all was. Sean Parnell's made this an issue, his Choose Respect campaign, which sadly, I was actually thrilled and very much supportive that he was putting this out there as a priority for the state and appeared to have some leadership. Then I interviewed him and he said that he was only going to fund 10% of the village safety officers needed.
But it's more than that. You know, this is a classic Parnell thing where he says the right thing, and I give him credit for raising a very difficult issue, but he grabbed a headline and then moved on. There's no sustained commitment to solving the problem of domestic violence in the Parnell approach. I mean, to the extent he has an approach at all, it's all law enforcement. He doesn't have a commitment to victim services, to rehabilitation, to anything besides more police, more law enforcement. And that's just not the right answer to a problem as complex as domestic violence is.
Yeah, I don't think that there's been a huge amount of funding for treatment of people that are incarcerated or any.
No, they've gone the opposite direction, in fact, is they've cut treatment. They've cut the ability to provide shelter for victims of domestic violence. That's the wrong approach. And we've got to have a sustained commitment that's comprehensive when we tackle any problem as tragic as domestic violence is for this state. It's one of those social problems that's pervasive, that affects all people across Alaska. And we have not seen a sustained commitment from a governor on that front during the time that I've been involved in public service.
So what would you do different?
You've got to have a comprehensive approach. It's not just going after the bad guys. It's also making sure that victims receive the treatment and the support and the shelter and the safety that enables them to escape this horrible cycle of violence, and make sure that the children that are affected by it don't pass that violence on to their children. We can do a lot more in this state to make sure that communities and families are safe and healthy, and the approach of just making it law enforcement isn't adequate.
So what does that look like? I mean, and I've thought about this often, like, do you develop a 611 number or a different phone number that's that kind of emergency? Do you, of people that are afraid of it or people that are enduring, we have the highest rates of incest, do you create a separate, like, emergency number and get that out there? Do you put more education in the schools? I mean, I
think all of these are part of what has to happen. And the idea that we can only do one thing to tackle a complex problem oversimplifies the complexity of the problem and makes it harder and harder to reach a genuine solution. We're never going to do away with all domestic violence or any of these complex problems. But if we continue to have an approach that focuses on grabbing headlines and proving that we're just tough on crime instead of being smart on crime, we're not going to provide public safety for families that are in danger and in jeopardy. And I believe, having worked in law enforcement, that we can do a lot better than we've been doing.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps they don't have the resources that they need to do it, because I have never talked to a police officer or a trooper that didn't just want to do everything they could to protect someone in that situation. It's just, it's not on them. I think it's on resources.
I think of the people that I worked with who were victims of domestic violence, the incredible courage they showed coming forward to testify against their attacker, and the inability of the system to provide the totality of services that are required. People need shelter. They might need clothing. They might need the ability to begin a new life with a safe identity. And those services aren't always available.
I have an idea. I just had it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here's an idea. The only billboards in Alaska would be the pictures of perpetrators of domestic violence, rape, and incest.
I wouldn't even give them that kind of notoriety.
I would put them up there, and corrupt politicians.
Is there room for both? I mean, I know we're a big state, but do we have room for all those billboards?
Do we have enough highway for all those
That's
billboards?
an argument for more infrastructure.
Well, I mean, people are able to hide in very easily in this state, too many of their crimes. I want to talk to you a little bit about ACEs. You know I'm a supporter of ACEs, and you and I have talked about this several times. Doesn't always go well.
But it will today.
But it will, because I have Jan Flores Flowers here. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left in this segment. Give me your best pitch on it.
All right, let me just say from the beginning, so I'm clear about this, is I think the system that pre-existed before ACEs, the economic limit factor and the PPT, those were broken systems. We needed to do better than what we've been doing with it, than that. The state was not receiving its fair share. I think ACEs was a step in the right direction. I've got an approach with the oil revenue system that's two parts. The first is to make sure that we preserve the state's oil wealth for a long period of time, taking the genius of the permanent fund, which is that you take a non-renewable resource, oil, and convert it into something renewable. That would be combining the royalty piece, which is the state's one out of every 8 barrels that comes out of the ground belongs to the state. The other 7 barrels the leaseholder has to buy from us. The purchase price is currently known as ACEs. I'd like to see us create a permanent type account and over time fill it flush enough so we could fund government from the income stream that comes from it. The second piece of what I've talked about.
So not the permanent fund, but a different account that was sort of modeled off of it.
That's modeled off it. It's what's known as a sovereign wealth fund. You look at the example that Norway, for example, has. That's why they're able to sustain their economy even through the global recession that we've seen over the last few years. The second piece of what I've talked about is let's play forward. And this is a conversation you and I had before. Is what I've said is let's try this new system that I'm proposing where we negotiate field by field, region by region as we move forward. And people say that's incredibly complex, we can't do that. But we're already doing it. There's erosion in ACEs now. You're seeing, for example, people trying to carve out exceptions for cook inlet gas. You see that we have a provision under state statute for companies to apply for what's known as royalty relief, subject to a series of relatively strict, and I think appropriately so, statutory requirements before that relief can be granted.
We have to go to a break.
Okay. So 2 pieces. We'll wait. I almost did it.
I know. We're coming back in
Thanks.
just a couple of minutes with more questions for Ethan Berkowitz. We'll be right back.